So in this video, I'm going to do a comprehensive overview of bandsaw blades, how to figure out what kind of bandsaw blade to order, how to get the right bandsaw blade into the cart, just the whole process of figuring out how to get the right bandsaw blade for your job. So on our website, you'll notice there is a tab at the top for bandsaw blades, and there's several different categories of bandsaw blades. You can go there and kind of poke around and see some different things about blades for metal, for wood, for portabands, for hobby saws. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to want to end up onto our bandsaw blade custom welded to length page. At least that's where we're going to start anyway. On this page, you have the ability to order blades of just about any configuration. But if you're at that point where you're not even really sure what to order, right at the very center of the page is this big black button called Blade Selection Guide. Go ahead and click on that, and that's going to take you to our blog page that walks you through step by step how to figure out what bandsaw blade to use. So the first part of figuring out the bandsaw blade for your job is to find out the size, the length of your band. And there's several different ways you can do that. You might already know the length of your band. That's really easy. One other method would be to measure an old bandsaw blade. So you could do that by laying it out flat with a measuring tape aside and go ahead and move that measuring tape around. I did a video on how to do that. You can find that on YouTube, and I'll ask Ryan to put that in the link down below in the description. So measuring an old bandsaw blade, you can also use a masking tape or a string and just run that around the circumference of the wheels with the wheels set into working position. What I mean by that is typically the top wheel on a bandsaw has tension adjustment, so it can move up and down to create tension on the blade. So when you're measuring for your blade, you want to have that somewhere near the mid to just below mid position, so you still have room to apply tension to that blade. So once you have your wheel in that position, you can wrap a piece of masking tape around where the blade would go, and then cut that masking tape, lay it out, and measure it. For those of you that are really into math, there is a calculation for it. You can have a look at it here on the page. You can go ahead and figure out, just using a bit of math, on what length of bandsaw blade to use. So now that you know what length your bandsaw blade is, the next question you need to answer is, how wide of a band do I want to put on this saw? So that's going to vary, again, based on the capacity of your saw. Some saws will list that they go from 1/8 up to 3/4, or 1/8 to 1/2 inch. Or if you're on a metalworking saw that only takes 1 1/4 wide bands. So those are the things you're going to want to discover ahead of time to make sure you're ordering the right width of blade. If you do have a saw, typically woodworking or upright band saws that take a variety of widths, then it really boils down to how tight of a radius do you want to be able to cut with this particular blade. So obviously the thinner the blade, the tighter the radius you can cut with it. So starting on the chart here at a 1/8 inch wide blade, this would be from our hobby section, not on our custom blade section, but you can find 1/8 and 3/16 blades there. And that's more for those really tight scroll works in Artesia, things like that, where you're cutting very, very tight corners. In standard bandsaw blades, they're going to start at 1/4 inch wide. 1/4 inch 6-tooth is a really common blade. 1/4 inch blade can cut about the radius of a quarter, a 25-cent piece. And then as you go up there in width, you're going to restrict more and more how much curve you can cut without really straining the blade. So there you go. That's bandsaw blade width. So we're going to choose the width based on how straight or how tight of a curve we want to be able to cut. The wider the blade, the straighter that blade is going to want to track. So if you're looking for a dead straight cut, go with the widest blade possible for your saw. The next thing you need to look at is, what type of blade material do I want to use? So we've broken these down into carbon, specialty, and bimetal, and carbide tipped. So carbon bands are your standard bandsaw blades. Flex back carbon means it's made from a carbon steel, and it has hardened teeth but a flexible back, so not a hardened backing. This is really good for general purpose work, again for curve cutting, works in wood and aluminum and other non-ferrous metals. A variation of that is the hard back blade, which is basically the exact same blade material, but the backing has also been hardened, which gives that blade a little more rigidity for keeping it straight, stopping it from drifting off a little bit. Just gives you a little bit more control in that sort of straight cutting application. And just anytime you want to have a more rigidity for a vertical cut. We do have some specialty blades listed as well. There's furniture band, which are a thicker blade. These are typically used when cutting out sort of those curved furniture legs, things like that. Meat blades, also a carbon blade, but these are used in butcher shops, and these are most often found in our 5/8 wide. You'll see them indicated in the list as a meat blade. There's also wood mill blades. These will land in your hardback section. These are blades that are designed specifically for the gas-powered wood mills. And then we also find under specialty carbide tipped. This is an area that we're adding more and more options to over the next little while, but you'll already see a few options in like a 3/4 inch wide, 3 tooth per inch, 1 inch wide, 3 tooth per inch. That's sort of an option. These particular bands are often designed for metalworking, but can be very effective in ripping and resawing of wood as long as the wood isn't too thick. So you just have to be careful that you're not getting too many teeth per inch. But you can get a nice 1 inch 3 tooth blade and go through some really hard woods in 4 inch thickness or 6 inch thickness and do a nice job with that. Following below that, we have the bimetal blades. Bimetal are most often used for metalworking. We have the matrix, which is your real general purpose. And then we have the M42, which is the high-speed steel teeth, the hardened teeth, longer lasting. And then we do have a specialty blade mixed in there called the Duos. This is a real general purpose blade and does actually stand up to cutting without a lubrication. So if you're having to cut metal without a lubrication, it doesn't change the fact you still need to have variable speed, which we're going to get into in a minute. But that Duos is a really good general purpose blade for maintenance and just having a blade that's going to do just about everything. So those bimetal blades, again, are a high-speed steel band of teeth that are fused to a steel backing. That gives you that extra hard tooth, again, typically for metalworking. And then this is just a little chart that shows how to pick based on what material you're cutting, whether you want M42, matrix, that kind of stuff. The next thing we're going to look at is how many teeth per inch do you want on the saw that you're buying. Again, there's going to be differences between wood and metal, and these are general rules that you can kind of play with based on the application of what you're doing. So in the woodworking realm, you can see that a 2 tooth per inch is good for up to about a minimum of 1.5 inches of thickness. You don't want to cut much thinner than that with a 2 tooth or it's going to get really rough and teary. The finer you go, the cleaner the cut's going to be, but you're also prone to clogging. So a general rule of thumb is you want to try to keep 3 to 6 teeth in the cut at any one time. So if you've got a 1 inch thick piece of wood, that means anywhere from a 3 to a 6 tooth per inch is going to cut it. The 3 tooth is going to cut it faster. The 6 tooth is going to cut it cleaner. So that's just a real general rule of thumb. Again, you can vary outside of that, but just keep in mind that every time you vary outside of those rules, there is a trade-off for that. In the metalworking realm, it does get a little bit trickier because it depends on whether you're cutting flat stock or bar stock, whether you're cutting stacked materials or not. But again, so this particular chart talks about your solid materials on the left, your square stock and your round stock, and then your tube or I-beam or structural type materials on the right. Now, the tooth per inch on the bimetal blades is typically done in what's called a variable pitch. That's why you see 2 numbers here. So this 5/8 right here represents 2 tooth counts on that blade. So it's going to go 5 teeth per inch, followed by 8 teeth per inch, followed by 5 teeth per inch, followed by 8 teeth per inch. That's why we call this a variable pitch. There's a real specific reason to have that on your metalworking blades, and that is it not only does it give you a wider range of materials you can cut with that blade, but it helps stop the blade from setting up a harmonic vibration. Harmonic vibrations on a straight tooth blade can cause that vibration and cause that blade to wear out or fatigue quicker than normal. So having that variable pitch breaks up that vibration, so it gives you better life and more versatility out of your blade. So Then below that, we just have some general recommendations based on what we've talked about, some places to start at. If you're really not sure, then you can kind of go here and get started from there, and then vary from that as you go. The next thing we're going to talk about is the speed that your saw runs at. When we talk about speed, we're going to talk about surface feet per minute. That's how many feet of blade pass by the material in a minute. And this is really critical on your metalworking machines. So if you've got a woodworking saw, they typically run around 3,000 surface feet per minute. I'm talking about your vertical standard woodworking saws. So you're going to be in that range of 3,000 surface feet a minute. We often get asked questions, can I cut metal on my woodworking saw? The technical answer is sure, you can, but you are going to have some trade-off issues. The maximum speed for a steel cutting saw is going to be around 300 surface feet a minute. So it's about 1/10 the speed of a woodworking saw. So you're running much faster. So if you try to cut steel on that saw, you are going to see very quick submetal fatigue. There's a higher need for lubricants, and just you have to be very, very careful with your feed rates and things like that. Cutting aluminum and non-ferrous metals, not so bad. You can do that at 3,000 surface feet per minute with the correct blade on there. But when you get into your carbon steels, and especially into your harder steels, your stainless and your alloy steels, you get down into 100 surface feet a minute. So you can basically see that weld going by. That's how slow that blade has to turn in order to cut effectively into these harder titanium and tool steel. But again, you can refer to this chart based on the material that you're cutting and find what feet per minute seems to work for that material and try to get as close to that as possible. Again, if you've got a woodworking saw, some of them do have step pulleys to vary you down. So just see what your range is and try to land as close as you can to the right speed to get the most effective cutting. So that's it. That's the main overview of all the details you need in order to get over to our bandsaw blade page and start placing an order. So you can see at the bottom of the article here, there's some information on how to save money by buying in bulk, how to save on shipping, and then there's a link here you can click, which is going to take you directly to that order page we've been talking about. So in here, the first thing we're going to do is just put in the length that you found from that first section we talked about in the article. Let's say it's a 105/8. So it's 100 inch and there's 5/8. So we just separate those. So the even inches go here, the portions of an inch go here. And then we're going to pick a blade width. And we're going to start with a 1/2 inch blade. You'll notice as you make that selection, it changes what's available down here to just 1/2 inch wide blades. And now you're going to select your tooth per inch based on those parameters that we talked about within the chart. So here's your flex back carbon blades with the different tooth counts, your hardback and carbon specialty blades, and the tooth counts that are available for those. And then here's your bimetal blades. And you will see over here, here's that carbide tip blade we were talking about. When you click on a blade, what will happen then is you will populate pricing. And our pricing is all based on volume discounts. So all your volume discounts are based off of the list price. So this particular blade lists at $243, so it already qualifies for the $100 or more. So you're actually getting, when you get to the checkout, that one's going to be $194.74. If you added another blade to the cart to bring this over $250, that blade is going to be in there for $170.40. So it's a 20% discount at $100 or more, and a 30% discount when you get to $250 or more. So then you can just go ahead and click on Add to Cart, and that gives you the opportunity to put that item into the cart. So again, you can click on different blades here and get the current pricing, and go ahead and add those to cart. Once you mix and match the totals in the cart over one of these values, then they're all going to reprice in the checkout to these prices. So that's just a really broad overview of ordering bandsaw blades from our custom welded to length page. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always here to help.